Okay, so I think I am the obstacle between you and lunch. So the good news is this is very short. Like I threw this together in 30 minutes last night. I could have been playing Assassin's Creed. I was doing this for you, all right? So I also thought I'd be talking to a bunch of students, but this looks like a very professional crowd. How many of you are actually students? Okay, so a student of life, that doesn't count. That's all of us. Middle school? High school? College? UTD? Hell yeah. Whoosh. All right, I'm never doing that again. Okay, so I'm gonna plow through this really quickly. This is a really short talk, and you should know something about me. I'm really bad about talking about myself, so I don't really have that much to say, but hopefully it's entertaining before pizza or whatever it is out there. Okay, so really quick, this is a summary of my journey. I am a tech founder by trade. I did major in software engineering, but almost every engineer out there is better than I am. So I decided to become a CEO instead. So like at a really high level, I started my first company when I was 19, like in 2016. I was a sophomore here at UTD. Again, in ECS over the engineering school. I'll get to what the companies were in a second, but anyway, I started my first company in 2016. 5 years later, if you fast forward, we had customers across 10 states. We sold to police departments, so we had not only police departments across 10 states, but we also started breaking into private security, universities. We had military customers in the US Air Force and Department of Homeland Security as well. And so 2021 was also when we were acquired by a private equity firm based in like about Atlanta, Georgia. And so they bought my company, changed my life, changed my family's lives. They never have to worry again. And so as part of the deal that we negotiated, I had to stay on for 2 years, as did most of my team. My team went along with me. And so I started as director over our division, and then 1 year in was promoted to VP over all of the products. And the short story is I was miserable. I hated every single second of it. That's a different story. I belong in the startup, put it that way. So we slogged through 2 years of this thing. My co-founder and I, when we hit our second anniversary, we got our final payout. And so the golden handcuffs are off at that point. So we went to GPT on our 2-year anniversary. I had GPT write my resignation letter, and then I emailed that, and then I gave it to my co-founder. He copied and pasted that same exact resignation letter, and then he sent it right after. So it was hilarious. We both jumped ship. I don't know what just happened, but I'm gonna keep going anyway. So we jumped ship in 2023 into our current company full-time, which is called Mia Labs. And 2 years later, we're growing very, very quick. I won't go into details about how, but I have a couple of investors here, and they know exactly how crazy things are getting. So yeah, oh, right, yeah, so I'm also on the faculty here at UT Dallas, over in the business school, in the entrepreneurship department. I teach one of the advanced electives called Startup Launch, basically teaching students how to validate ideas. They have to apply what the business idea they have, and some of them even might make it to launch by the end of the semester. So very real world course. I'm actually a very tough professor. I'm being nice here because I'm just a guest for today. All right, so yeah, these are my startups. The first one on the left, current one on the right. The first one, very different, well, in a way. First one, we did virtual reality training for police and military. So at the time, it wasn't a good way to practice de-escalation for law enforcement. Really, the only thing you could train for was shoot or don't shoot decisions. And so we created the first immersive and communication-based simulator that allowed police to practice thoughtful communication techniques, de-escalation with virtual avatars in real time. Everything from traffic stops to domestic violence to active shooters. And so that's the one we sold in 2021. Now the current startup, Mia Labs, is essentially an AI agent for the automotive retail industry. So think dealerships, service centers, so basically anything around the consumer process of buying or servicing a car. And so we're really excited about that opportunity because most people don't realize that automotive as a whole contributes to 5% of our nation's GDP. It's a much larger industry than people realize. And plus, like as a car enthusiast myself, and I started and I run a car community here in Dallas, we appreciate that we live in a nation driven by cars. And if you take a sales rep who works at a dealership, today on average they'll sell between 8 to 10 cars per month, and it's actually the same figure as it was back in the 80s. So you've had this evolution in the dealership tech stack, but the volume and effectiveness of a dealership today is no better than it was over 40 years ago. And we saw an opportunity to give dealerships modern tools to help them drive volume and compete in the 21st century. So this is more of a startup-focused talk than an AI-focused talk. So they asked me to talk about challenges I had, so I came up with these. So I started when I was 19. I didn't know anything like at all. I had no prior track record. I didn't even grow up thinking I was going to become an entrepreneur. I didn't know what the word meant until much later. In my life, I thought I was just going to become an engineer and kind of leave it at that. So I had this huge hurdle. Like I was just smashing my forehead against the wall. And I've never taken a sales course in my life. Like even to this day, I've never taken a sales course. So it was just constant drinking from a fire hose. I was networking with a ton of professionals in the community, not just our customers, but also potential mentors, advisors, investors, people much more established in their careers. And I can totally imagine they probably saw me as a kid at the time. I looked like I still look like I'm 12, I think. So that was annoying, put it that way. And I had to like kind of try to overcompensate for, hey, like I'm not just some random student with an idea. I'm serious. I'm trying to do this for real. Number 3 is that the responsibility ages you very quickly. I remember the feeling of running my first payroll in the first company and now in the current company, both times, even though I'm much more experienced now, it felt exactly the same. It's the thought of, oh my God, I am responsible for putting food on people's tables and meeting the payroll. They have taken a chance on me. They've given up this opportunity cost to work with me. And that is a very big fiduciary, but also emotional burden I had to learn to carry. I've hired, I've made mistakes, and so I've also fired. It's one of my least favorite parts of the job. But I'll cover later, the team is one of the most important parts of your company. And it is the most determining factor of whether or not you might actually make it. So learning how to properly vet talent and build up the right team, that was one of the big challenges I had as well, that I had to learn. Number 5, I kind of covered the resilience part already when I gave the payroll story. But basically, I'm a lot older now than when I first started that company. I'm also like plenty of therapy sessions in at this point. Like I've gone through so much adversity since then, and just keeping the company alive. And so at this point, I'm much better at managing my emotions and being level-headed no matter what happens. But I'd say back then in my first company, my mental state was kind of like a roller coaster. So you're always going to have highs and very low lows, and I think learning to manage my emotions through that process was one of the challenges as well, because it's not like working in a big corporation where if something explodes, you can just go to your manager and know like you are the manager, and you're going to nobody else but you. And so, and the last thing here is kind of specific, but COVID almost killed my first company. And so we were selling to police departments, right? So when COVID onset, and we were selling like these virtual reality training simulators, that we had to demo in person. Customers wanted to try it on, experience it for themselves before they bought. And so what happened when COVID came? Governments froze all spending and all airports shut down. Our entire sales pipeline froze and nobody knew how long this was going to last. And that was a really hard one too. The first thing I did was I went back to our financial model. I looked at, okay, what expenses can we slash? And this is one of the scariest moments in my career because I really just don't, people were freaking out, right? And I needed to know what to do to try to keep the company alive. And so I went to my advisory board, and 50% of them said, you need to lay off people sooner than later before this gets worse. The other 50% said, do not lay people off at all costs. That will destroy culture and morale. And I said, thanks guys. So it's still a split decision, it falls on me. And at this point, leadership really is, leadership stems from the CEO and how they grew up. That's my belief. And so at that point, all I had was my own moral compass. And so I made a decision and I sent an all hands email to my team and said, hey, obviously COVID is a thing. We don't know what's going to happen yet. We don't know how much longer it's going to last, but what I will say is that you don't have to worry at all. We will not lay off any employees. If I ask you to be there when I need you the most, then I need to be there when you need me the most. And it was terrifying because as I wrote that email, I had this paper list next to me on my desk of the exact order of names I would lay off if I was forced to. And so in the end, we rebounded. It was a record sales year, and we didn't have to lay anybody off. So I made the right call, and I'm super proud of that. Yes. How many of you actually are interested in starting a company? I never assumed, but okay, cool. We got one in the back, two. Okay, all right. So for everybody else, this will be entertainment. Who knows? Maybe I'll inspire you. I don't know. All right. So really quick, these are sort of parts taken from my lectures on campus. So if you're thinking about starting a company, if you have a business idea, market validation always comes first. This is a really quick framework of how to think about it. There are three things that you're really going after here. Number one, desirability. Is the problem you're addressing actually real? And is it a significant burning problem, or is it just a minor annoyance? There's a very big difference between those two. So the people even want what you're offering, and so who are those people? Can you define that target market? Number two is viability. So even if you think there's a need, is it financially even worth pursuing? Can you be profitable? How are you going to make money, and how are you going to spend money now and as you grow? And number three, feasibility. Even if there is a need, and even if you think a financial model here can work out, can you even deliver? Can you build the product or service, deliver it, and execute the rest of the business model? Can you build the company itself? So the dumb example I always use here is like, if your idea is about space tourism, okay, so if you go ahead and just assume that some people out there are going to want to travel in space, and two, you can probably charge these people enough to profit on it, like just rough assumption, right? Number three is like, okay, how are you even going to go out and do this? What are you going to do? Build rockets? How are you going to execute it? So that'll, for most people, probably shoot them that idea then and there. So those three. This is another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. This is an alternative view of how to think about it. This is usually what I tell my students when we're talking about seeking investment. There's like this trifecta, three main things that early stage investors look for. It's just product market team. So is your product substantially better than everything else in market, including the status quo, including just doing nothing for free? Number two is the market. So depending on what your goals are for the business, is the market large enough to support that? Can you scale enough within it? And number three, is your team the one to go out there and win in the market? Can you build and sell better than anybody else in the market? So that's another way to think about it. All right, this is the last slide. I told you to do it fast. Okay, so in no particular order, they asked me to give advice to y'all. So here's what I came up with. Number one, technology doesn't inherently matter. I know that sounds like heresy speaking about that right here for this organization, but I stand by it. Technology doesn't inherently matter. Solving real problems does, right? So technology is like a tool. It's like a hammer or a sword. The only thing that matters is how you use it. Are you using it in a productive way? Are you being ethical? Are you using it for good or not? So remember that the problem is the only thing that matters. And is it real and is it burning? Number two, this sort of ties into the first one, is that in my experience, the best founders are obsessed about their customers. The first thing you always want to do when you have a new idea, and I tell my students this every semester, is talk to customers. Do not write a single line of code. Talk to the market first. Understand their problems. Do not pitch them your idea, but ask them about their lives, about the problems they're running into, what are the consequences of that, and just stop and listen. And you may be surprised when you learn. Oftentimes, the problem you think exists actually doesn't. Maybe you'll find a different problem or a different market. So number three, revenue is priority. So in my class, I bought this gong on Amazon for $100. It's called the money gong, and it's my tradition every semester. And it teaches two things. One is that revenue is the lifeblood of all businesses. Without revenue, there is no commerce, and by definition, you do not have a business. And number two is you can't smash inside the gong until you have executed a qualified transaction and the money is realized in the bank. The second lesson there is that a deal is not done until it is done, right? And so that's what we teach with the gong. And so that's my message to you there, is that don't be distracted by anything. Peripheral revenue is what matters. Try to generate revenue as quickly and cheaply as possible. Everything else is a distraction. Number four, we already sort of covered this. You want to be 10x better than anything else out there. If you're only marginally better, for example, if you start like a social media consulting firm, not that there's anything wrong with that, but you're competing with like there's a social media firm on every block down the street. And so it's a constant race to the bottom. There's no differentiation. You certainly won't be able to fundraise for it, that's for sure. So the essence of startups is to be disruptive. It's to be different, to be audacious and contrarian. So be significantly better. Number five, don't neglect. Okay, there's a common term in startups. It's that first-time founders emphasize product. Second-time founders emphasize distribution. So you can have the best product on the market, but your competitor with the worst product can completely eat your lunch if they understand your customers and how to reach them better than you do. So do not neglect how you are going to go to market and how you're going to scale that in a cost-efficient manner, ideally. Number six, team is everything. So 70 to 90% of startups fail within the first 10 years of inception. And there are many symptoms to a failed startup. You run out of cash, you have to pivot, you got outcompeted, but in almost every case, these symptoms can be traced back to just one source, and it's simply the team is not the right one to take this to market and win. The team is the most important. So do not sleep on your team. Be very selective and critical about every single seat that you have. And lastly, it's a very long journey, especially if you a startup as opposed to a small business. Assume it's going to be a 5 to 10 plus year journey. And in particular, if you are the CEO, it can be a very lonely journey as well. Very few people understand what it's like to be in the CEO seat. It is very isolating. You carry this unique pressure burden that nobody else, even your co-founders, cannot shoulder. So, I think my best advice to you is make sure you have a healthy support circle outside of your company. It can be your advisors, your friends, your mentors, like the people in this organization, family, whatever it takes, so that you can be 100% transparent and just have an outlet, because it will get tough and it's more brutal than I can figure out how to articulate up here in words. So just one more. And that's it for the students here. Looking back, this is one of the things that I did right as when I was a student, is I let myself explore just as much as possible. Like, and I'm not talking about just academics, and there's that too. If you're familiar with the Artificial Intelligence Society here on campus, I founded that back in 2016, so there's a little bit of that, but just focus, try to build yourself out as a holistic human being. Like I explored like Latin dance, martial arts, stone sculpture. I just let myself roam everywhere. If something was remotely interesting, I would let myself just pursue it and just learn and take the world in. And that's going to be important, not just as a technologist, and especially as the ethics of AI are up in question today, but also as a human being and as a founder. So allow yourself to be curious. Do not pigeonhole yourself. And I don't know what everybody else's opinions are here, but grades don't matter. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. I hope you've inspired a few at least. So the next time you ask a question, I hope more hands raised up. So thank you for that. We had a small, during the prize distribution, we wanted to, recognize all the speakers. But since Brian has a hard stop, we're going to have that ceremony a little ahead just for him. So I request the founding members, Brody and Elias and Ranjit, to come forward. Brody and Ranjit have been instrumental in getting Brian for us today. So just wanted to take and to say what
George is one of my investors, so when he asked me to do it, I couldn't say no.
I'll make one comment. So, Hitesh made a phone call to me asking for speakers, nominations, etc. And obviously, being the oracle of networking in the Dallas area, the first phone call I did was to Joel, and both of us started to brainstorm, and one name that stuck out, and both of us found the word Brian. So it was that I don't think we have a better person than Brian to talk to you.
Thank you for that. I mean, I have a hard stop. Like, I have 3 questions. I think I will let this go to Zane ask.
It depends on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Very quick.
Do we want to? I don't know.
I'll make it quick.
What's up?
Okay. First of all, very inspiring journey. Congratulations.
Thank you.
3 questions that I think will help the students. Number 1, attitude. Do you just like one day wake up and said, I got this great idea? Or was there something you developed an attitude that allowed you to look at everything and think of a product idea? If you look at a virtual reality set and did you think like, how can I productize this? How do you come up with the idea generation? That's the first question. Second question is, if there is no market, it's a brand new market you're entering into, how do you study what's the potential of that? And the last question is, being so young and coming up with an idea, how did you convince the folks with the big fat pockets to shell their money out?
Okay, I'll do one at a time. I may need to repeat some of those, but the first one, it's literally like this is the answer right here. Is when I was a student in software engineering, I was really interested in emerging technology. So the 2 in particular I chose were virtual reality and artificial intelligence, and I was just trying to meet as many people. I was networking constantly, going to as many events as possible, and so the more people I met with different diverse backgrounds, the more industries and problems I would learn about. And I was never trying to like shove ideas or technologies down anybody's throats. I was just like, so like tell me about what is your day-to-day like? What problems do you run into? What's stressing you out? What keeps you up at night? And over time, you just learn about more industries, and eventually with these 2 companies, I met in the first one a retired police officer, and the second one I met a head of sales at a car dealership. We were talking about, oh my God, there's this big problem and opportunity that we see, and we think this technology would be the perfect way to apply a solution. And so I get to know them over a few more months and did my own due diligence. That gave me the conviction to move forward into a pilot program and talk to customers and see what would happen. And the rest is history. Second, if the market doesn't exist, how do you do the research? I think it's very rare for the market to not exist. Like there are startups that are creating new markets, but that's very rare. Like sort of like Uber, Airbnb-ish as an example. But in most cases, startups are improving the status quo in an existing industry or for a problem that probably already exists, but now if the timing is right, there's an opportunity to solve this in, again, a 10 times better way, like a whole order of magnitude. So, I mean, usually, standard process, I mean, there's plenty of secondary research you can do. You can Google, market size, how many car dealerships are there in the US, learn, but the main thing is talking to customers, understanding, okay, what are their pain points, what are their budgets, how much do they spend on similar things. You can do the pretty easy math from there. And if you talk to enough people and you see the pattern hold, then that's typically a good sign. But I'll bring it back to just revenue. If you can convince one customer to pay you, you can probably convince a second one, and a fifth, and a 10th, and a 100th, and the list goes on. So that's why I always emphasize, like, hey, like revenue, to get there as quickly and cheaply as possible with the customer is your absolute priority. Everything else, like social media posts, it's all vanity, it doesn't matter.